So the director of The French Connection and Sorcerer injects himself into a colorful mid-80s crime thriller, but does the film's 40-year cult classic status hold terribly well together for me? Well, let's delve into all the varied aspects of To Live and Die in LA. In the city of Los Angeles, federal secret security agent Richard Chance doggedly pursues notorious counterfeiter Rick Masters. His partner Jim Hart was killed investigating a lead to a warehouse where Masters apparently does all his printing, and will stop at nothing to bring him down. With his new straight-laced partner John Vukovich, Chance runs down a sting at the airport, targeting Carl Cody, a known mule of Masters. While incarcerated, Cody aids Masters in rooting out crooked attorney Max Waxman, who ripped Masters off of $600,000. With the alluring help of his woman Bianca, the counterfeiter reclaims his cash for Waxman and promptly murders him. Yet Masters views Cody as a liability and orders a hit on him, but when that goes wrong, Chance leverages Cody's release as a material witness. While Chance heists a piece of incriminating bookkeeping for Waxman's office, Vukovich is uncomfortable with him doing so from under the LAPD. Chance's unethical mentality extends to his informant Ruth, who he uses to coerce leads and sex out of. Yet after Cody dupes Chance and escapes from his custody, Vukovich uses Masters' disgruntled house counsel Bob Grimes to set up an undercover sting against Masters. The counterfeiter requires $30,000 in front money for $1 million in fake bills. Yet when the agency won't authorize that much cash, Chance takes Ruth up on a lead she had on an out-of-town buyer, bargaining for $50,000 in diamonds. Now Chance's reckless attitude will run both men towards consequences they never imagined when a federal agent is killed, and the risk of busting Masters may come at too high of a cost. So seeing its U.S. theatrical release on November 1st, 1985, To Live and Die in LA comes to us as an adaptation of a novel written by Gerald Petievich, who was a retired Secret Service agent and decided, well, I got all this free time now and all this experience behind me, decided to write a bunch of fiction novels involving cops and criminals and federal agents and stuff like that, so write what you know, and this got published in early 1984, and so pretty nice turnaround for just over a year and a half from the time it was published to when it got a release film into cinemas. Pretty good thing to have on your record in that regard, but it really got the attention of William Friedkin. He read the novel, was very much intrigued by the entire thing, wanted to go with it, and he actually co-wrote the screenplay with Petievich to get it up on the screen. But Friedkin had a bit of a uneasy start to the 1980s to a certain degree, because it starts out with Cruising, which is a very controversial film, which is something Friedkin would never shy away from. Like, he invites confrontation, invited challenging cinema, all that type of stuff, like someone who just actually pushed the envelope and made no qualms about it, no apologies about it. But then follows up with a Chevy Chase film called Deal of the Century, which apparently in his memoir, it's one of two films along with The Guardian that he has absolutely nothing to say about, which is a total feat for William Friedkin, because the guy was never shy about sharing his opinion about anything whatsoever. But then he kind of like, okay, decides, I want to do something that feels a little bit more independent, a little more smaller scale, something a little bit more scrappy to a certain degree, and despite this thing goes through MGM United's artist eventually, gets it on cinemas and producing and stuff like that, with a $6 million budget, it gets it off on a very interesting level here, because the last film I covered from William Friedkin was The Exorcist, and that was a long, long, tumultuous, difficult production for everyone involved. Like, it's insanity. The fact this guy did get locked up for most of the stuff he put people through on that film is a hell of a thing, but turned out to be an absolute classic film that I absolutely adore. This one's completely different for everyone's accounts. It felt like all the stuff you heard about Friedkin before, this guy completely flipped on his head on this entire film, because he felt like he was alive on this film. He was flowing through it very freely, very fluid sensibility about everything going on in the film. Like, everyone felt like this guy let everyone kind of just breathe and work and kind of find the way to do the scenes and stuff like that here and there. Free-flowing type of stuff. Like, you would have the actors doing rehearsals and decided to just start rolling film whatsoever. And like, oh, cut, print, we're done, that's good. Actors didn't know you're rolling film, man. It's always a rehearsal. They didn't actually do the scene, and they get multiple takes like, I got what I wanted. That was perfect. Move on. So $6 million budget in 85. Still want to kind of get a little on the kind of make it as economical of a film project as possible to kind of moving forward and not waste any time. And the film ultimately grossed about $17.3 million at the box office, which is a pretty nice return on investment. Not a blow-away blockbuster success, but success nonetheless. It certainly probably was like a HBO, Cinemax sort of mainstay in that regard. Of course, the rental market is exploding at this point in time, so probably brought in a good, lucrative amount of money for his credit in that regard. And typing Dutch cinematographer Robbie Mueller for the film, who had just shot Alex Cox's Repo Man, which is a very different Los Angeles film, and she got an all non-union crew, which in Los Angeles seems like it just wouldn't happen at all, but apparently allowed him to kind of work on that kind of free-flowing wavelength all over the place, because everyone just kind of like, when he wanted to switch gears and kind of decide, I want to shoot that scene instead of this scene and stuff like that, kind of move off in different directions, kind of decide where we want to on a whim, everyone's just kind of flowing with him. There's no conflict, there's no friction on set and stuff like that, so everything just kind of worked out to his benefit to keep the cost low and keep everything moving in a very swift fashion in that regard. But interesting enough, on the screenplay, the fact that, again, Petievich and Friedkin are both credited for the whole thing, it's mainly Friedkin writing the script itself. He credits Petievich with the characters, but mainly anything they kind of worked on to kind of add to the story, kind of change something out, add in a new sequence or something else like that, or little things here and there. He kind of like work on it with Petievich, but Friedkin was the one actually writing the script itself. So kind of a nice thing to kind of give it off to him that's like, okay, we're kind of consulting together. I'm going to give you the credit for working on the screenplay with me, but I'm the one actually typing it up and do stuff like that in that regard. And so, interesting stuff that, again, it's a very collaborative environment for himself. Seems like he's kind of grown and developed and done certain things like, even at this point in time, like a couple weeks before this film was released, he put together a fantastic episode of the 1980s Twilight Zone series called Nightcrawlers. Wonderful type of thing. So while he's in post-production for To Live and Die, he goes off and does that thing, and that's an excellent piece of work. Definitely worth checking out in its own regard. But with Friedkin moving into this era of the mid-80s, which is very different type of things from what we had in the previous decade, much flashier, much more colorful, much more vibrant. A lot of the MTV influences are definitely powerfully into the entire pop culture and the lexicon of film and television at this point in time. It acclimates very well into this 1980s aesthetic. The entire thing of the vibrant colors, the flashy visuals, the kind of vibe overall, the entire thing, it just sits into his style so very nicely. Kind of transitions into it from everything he'd done before, because he came up through like news broadcasts and documentary filmmaking, so this is very much a different type of feel for him, getting up on that entire style there, and all the interesting things, the way he almost uses like a shorthand to streamline the narrative, which is kind of a thing that benefits it in terms of the pacing so much, because a lot of things where it doesn't bother with a lot of shoe leather, because a lot of things like shoe leather is the entire thing, like how a character gets from A to B and C, whatnot. A kind of person gets from one point to the next. He kind of exercises at some points in the entire film, like early on, when Jim Hart goes to the sort of warehouse in the middle of the desert there to kind of investigate Rick Masters and gets killed, and then we jump ahead right to the entire thing of 2 days later, everyone from the Secret Service is storming the entire warehouse looking for him because obviously he's gone missing. You could have had an entire scene there of connective tissue saying, oh, we're back at the agency headquarters or whatnot, and they're kind of like talking about, oh, he's been missing for 2 days, what are we going to do about it, what's going on here, where did he go, stuff like that. We already have the information. We don't need to have other characters discussing that information to get to the point of them actually getting to where the narrative needs them to get to. It removes the entire thing, like it's not necessary. You can move from A to B and have the audience just fill in the blank, like it shows you those sort of like timestamps and those date marks and stuff like that at the bottom of the screen saying, okay, this was the 22nd of December, that's the 24th. 2 days have passed, and it kind of fill in the blank, and it kind of move along the story without having to slow it down for 3 minutes to kind of fill in the blank for other characters to catch up on certain things that we already are aware of. So it's a nice thing to think that far ahead to not have to hold the hand of the audience. I do feel like there's some points in the entire film later on that, in terms of like character and stuff like that, could have benefited from a few more tethers of threads and stuff like that going on the whole thing. And the tight pacing on the film is so much to the credit of Bud Smith, the Oscar-nominated editor of The Exorcist, and Flashdance. So that shows his diversity, the way he can adapt to the demands of different storytelling in different types of films. And this is definitely a different type of film than The Exorcist was, so really found what Friedkin was looking for overall, but some other quirks of the editing in a certain way, which might be stemming from stuff on set in terms of like Friedkin saying like, I'm going to roll film on rehearsals, and if that's enough, cut, print, we're moving on. Not going to do other takes, another pieces of coverage, because there's a lot of dialogue scenes in the film where there's not a lot of coverage for it, where there's like two different actors trading dialogue back and forth, but you don't really get any reverse shots. A lot of times, like, it's just locked on one of the actors. You don't get like a lot of return shots in the other actor to kind of get a close-up or anything else like that. So it's an interesting type of thing how they kind of more conservatively put together those sequences to kind of move the story along faster. And plus, Friedkin apparently said he didn't like to repeat shots in his films. Like, he would like to avoid having to cut back and forth between the same shot, the same angle, the same composition over and over again on an actor or anything like that. So it's kind of a certain mentality he had going forward in the film where he felt like it was very much feeling a vibe overall. Like, everything was just like, if it came to him and it felt right, he just moved on with it and stuff like that. So it's very much different from a lot of other technical directors who do everything like 100 times or whatnot to get absolutely perfect at every precise level. Friedkin was definitely feeling things much differently on this film. And Mueller's cinematography has a great ability of capturing some very slick compositions, using some interesting locations overall. Like, they don't shoot in the kind of like the typical Los Angeles locations. Like, all the stuff they chose for the entire film is very unique for this entire film to kind of capture a different aesthetic of Los Angeles. Not the kind of glossy tourism palette or whatnot. It's very much all the different interesting little pieces that have a lot more character to them. I like that quality of having to use that stuff and actually shooting it in a certain way to kind of evoke a different complexion of Los Angeles. As this entire film, having that kind of title definitely means like you really want to have something that knows Los Angeles and can give it a different look overall, and definitely taps into all those really vibrant colors. Have all that stuff, and when you're going to like the strip club or the other nightclub, stuff like that, you got all these interesting gels going on in the entire thing to have that kind of vibrance kind of pop out in the entire film. So a lot of different cases, the film looks like a very competent, solid, slick package overall, where like not everything's like the most stunning thing you've ever seen, but it's a very solid looking film that kind of captures the moment and captures Los Angeles in a way that really hadn't been seen up to that point in time. So you're very much a type of thing on top of Mueller and Friedkin to kind of choose all the different things they want to do with the visuals to kind of pinpoint how they want to photograph Los Angeles in To Live and Die in LA. And since the counterfeiting of US currency is such a central aspect of the entire film, apparently they brought in some guys who maybe probably actually did this for real and probably got busted for it as well. And so they had Willem Dafoe actually doing this stuff on camera, touching up the film negatives, putting in the serial numbers, getting all that type of stuff, burning the plates, doing the printing, all that type of stuff. And as someone who did work in a commercial printing plant long time ago, a lot of this process in terms of just printing and the plates and all that type of stuff, very authentic in that regard. So a nice type of thing, but as they're doing this, they're actually legitimately printing counterfeit bills. And they leaked off a set in a certain way and got into certain hands and got the attention of the feds and all their law enforcement and started asking questions here and there and everywhere, and kind of got to a point where Friedkin told the guy on the production staff, you need to tell these guys either book you or let you go. It's a little bit of an ultimatum to throw down, but Friedkin, that's his attitude in the whole thing, and the thing blew over eventually in that regard, but just a little bit of a precarious position to have the production in at that point in time. And the cast assembled for this film is very much his own vibe altogether here, because Friedkin wasn't looking for the established stars. He wasn't looking for big names. He was kind of looking for people he could kind of discover and put into the film and kind of soak into the characters and not kind of be distracted by star power. He wanted to find that type of thing, and a lot of people came up from the stage, like William Petersen and John Pankow and Willem Dafoe had all come up from the stage. Mainly, Dafoe had done a couple of films here and there, like Loveless, Streets of Fire, stuff like that here and there, but mainly guys born out of the stage. And that was very much the way they went along, kind of grabbing a lot of people involved with the film. I want to say for William Petersen, this is his first lead role in a film. And God, I don't know how this guy didn't become just like a major freaking star, because he is electrifying as Richard Chance. This is the fact that the charisma, the gravitas he has on screen has such a penetrating quality. Like, this guy is the momentum. He's the charge running through this whole film. Anything I have criticism to say about the film later on here, Petersen is excellent in the role of Richard Chance. He embodies every quality absolutely. It very much reflects what he does about a year later with Michael Mann and Manhunter with Will Graham. He commits to the role. He just gets right into the thick of that entire character there. And Richard Chance is just a great thing. Like, you can see this guy, he's got that physicality on screen that just kind of just wraps you up. Like, man, I'm just excited watching this guy doing whatever he's doing on screen. Every look he has towards any character in the entire film, where he's shooting off here and there, or he's got some action scene going on, this guy's just so adept and so thoroughly charged up through every single moment in the entire film. It's like you see so much star potential in him that I don't know how the hell this guy didn't strike off like a hot streak after this entire thing. But I just like the fact that you got this entire character, Richard Chance, who is the most developed character in the film. He's very fascinating to hold as his character. Like, even early on in the film, where he's talking about it with his partner of Jim Hart, who is the guy who's close to retirement. He's going to get off by Rick Masters getting too close to his operation. It's like all your risk-taking, all that type of stuff, your hotshot attitude, it ain't going to get you anywhere near retirement. You're going to get killed in the field some way. And that's the thing that rides his character all the way through the film. That first scene you see him in that sort of terrorist bombing scene where he's kind of handling that situation, but then you get up to the entire thing where he's doing the base jumping, all these different things. Like, all these things are building up the character, showing that the guy, he's an adrenaline junkie. He wants that kind of, that thing pumping through his veins so much, going from one thing to the next, and then gets every license given to him to go off in that direction. When Jim Hart gets killed, and he's getting up on Rick Masters, he's getting closer and closer, and things are ripping and tearing at him in certain ways here and there. And the fact that he's got this entire informant called Ruthie, who's kind of like this one who can extort all these different things. He can just extort information, extort sex from her, all these different things. Like, shows Chance is not that good of a guy. He's not a guy to really empathize with so much, but you're caught up so much with his kinetic energy throughout the entire film. You're just mesmerized by what William Petersen is doing with his character on screen. Like, he's just so intensely into this character, and you're just shooting along with the ride with him. And it's a very interesting way of how Friedkin decides to go ahead to end the story of that character in the film to a way that pays off all this sort of risk-taking and coming to a head, also something that completely contradicted shortly thereafter, which I'll get into much later on. But Petersen in the role of Richard Chance is a fantastic thing to behold. And if this was kind of like a bigger success, like a really kind of like breakout, kind of a Lethal Weapon, Die Hard level success, William Petersen would have been one of the biggest stars in the world after this in this sort of action thriller genre in that regard. And Petersen helped bring in John Pankow, who had worked with him before, into the role of John Vukovich. And interestingly enough, in the entire novel itself, there's a lot more kind of substance for the character. Like, first couple chapters I actually did get through, because I didn't get through the entire thing. I felt like it was a little less than inspired in terms of its writing in some places here and there. But in terms of the characterization of John Vukovich, he's a guy who was supposed to be an ex-Vietnam veteran. And he had this entire marriage that fell apart and stuff like that, which is something that got shot. And Friedkin kind of regretted cutting a scene towards the end of the film that he kind of confronts his wife in his very kind of manic state in a certain way that would have given a little more layers to his character in a certain way. But Pankow does a good job portraying the character, because he's supposed to be this kind of counterbalance to Chance's wild recklessness. The guy who has sort of a conscience, a guy who has a certain morality about himself, but he kind of gets whisked away in this entire thing. And it's like, I like the fact that he constantly shows the entire thing like all the stuff is really chewing at him so much. By the time you get close to the end of the film, his conscience is ripping and tearing at him. The fact that they had this entire heist go down, because through Ruthie, Chance hears about the entire thing of this guy coming down from San Francisco, buying diamonds, got $50,000 coming along with himself. And like, well, we need $30,000 to front for Masters because the department won't give it to us. And so they have to do this entire heist thing. And once the guy gets killed in the entire heist, Vukovich is just like, he just cannot get his mind off the entire thing. And when you find out that later on, this is an entire FBI sting operation, we killed a federal agent, it's killing him. It's killing him all the way through the entire back half of the entire film here. I love what he does with the entire role there in that regard. The further along it gets, the less he can hold himself together. I like that quality of the character, but pulling out a lot of those different elements from the novel that don't make it into the film, make him a thinner character. Don't give him as much to kind of chew on in that regard as someone that has a lot more substance, because those first couple of chapters, he almost feels like he's the main character, not Chance. Chance is not really kind of developed that much in the first couple of chapters of the book that I got through, so there's a lot of meat on the bone for Vukovich in the entire novel there, and a lot more that I didn't even get through, that shows that there was a lot more stuff to get for the character that clearly Pankow was aware of. He talked about in the interviews on the Blu-rays and DVDs and whatnot, but just the fact that it has a good role that doesn't quite have as much exploration, doesn't get a lot of things kind of layered into his character that really have as much to kind of weight him down in a certain way, but he still does a very good job with it. But again, I feel like some things they do at the ending of the film kind of contradict his own character as well. And that moves us into Willem Dafoe. I think he's a fantastic actor. Like this guy, the body of work he has, looking back from it now, my God, what a damn career he's had. Anything you put in front of this guy, he is just going to absorb it and just kind of meld himself into wherever it needs to be for that entire film. He does a fantastic job of pretty much everything he's ever done. And Rick Masters, I love it. Again, the few bits I got through the novel, I love this character. This guy's the magnetism in the entire novel there. And the fact is, Dafoe just inhabits that so much. He's got this razor-sharp, ice-cold mentality. Like the fact that he's presented this guy who works a very strict code of operation. Like, people kind of cross him, you're done with. For instance, there's that crooked, sleazy attorney he's hooked up with, Max Waxman, who scams out the $600,000 that he claims, like, oh, Cody, he didn't go off and kind of do that drop thing. He says he was going to do it later and stuff like that, so I don't have the money, but Masters trusts Cody much more than Waxman, and Waxman actually has the cash, and he goes off and kills the guy. Done with. The entire thing with Jeff, the guy he hooks up with to get the hit out on Cody because, well, Cody's locked up in prison, he's a liability, he might flip on me to the feds, ends up botching the hit. And it's like, where's my money? I want my money back. You didn't get the job done. And the entire thing falls apart in that regard, and all this stuff is built up with Masters' is very economical, very calculated sensibility of how to deal with certain people in this line of work where everything can be a liability if no one is exactly what they appear to be, which leads into a lot of different problems like I have with a lot of the other characters towards the end of the film, where some of these character traits kind of get skewed off for ways that don't entirely hone up with how they've been portrayed and presented throughout the rest of the entire film here, but I'll get to that in due time. But I think Dafoe does a fantastic job in this role, just having that very slick, kind of sinister sensibility, but it's just such a great swagger to the character overall, just like he slips into it so effortlessly. Just get a little taste of the guy here and there, but you get so much right from his screen presence. Love Dafoe. I love so many people in this entire cast here, but I love John Turturro. Like this guy, way back here, 85, still showing. This guy was always great. He's got that gravitas. I love the fact that he's got this hold on this character of Carl Cody, that he's got this quality of like he's a tough guy. He's been hardened. He's been in the joint before. He's not going to flip on people. Like, no way. No way. You're coming in here kind of flashing badges and stuff like that. I got this ulcer. They say, oh, you need to have a operation. Like, I'm not going to have these butchers at the frickin' prison cut me open. I'll just keep sucking back this Pepto-Bismol, which was something in the novel as well. But in the novel, he's not Carl Cody. He's Carmine Falcone. John Turturro portrayed Carmine Falcone in The Batman over 35 years after this film was made, despite the fact they changed the name of the character to Carl Cody for reasons I don't know. But Falcone would make his debut in DC Comics in Frank Miller's Batman Year One in 1987, 2 years after this film was made. That's an amazing coincidence. Mind-blowing in that regard, but the fact is, Turturro, what an actor. This guy's got the juice, 100% in the film. I love every piece of screen time he's got because, man, he knows how to own that screen and really kind of deliver a character that has that impact overall. Very good stuff on his regard. But regardless of any kind of script issues I have, I do feel like the entire cast here does a very solid job with all the roles they're given, especially with someone like Dean Stockwell, who'd been acting for decades at that point in time, perfectly poised as the character of Grimes, that kind of big shot attorney. Robert Downey Sr. coming in here as the head of the Secret Service division in that regard. A lot of different cases here, like a lot of the women in the entire film do a very nice job having a little bit of a interesting quality overall. Like Bianca, hooked up with Rick Masters, has a certain independence about herself that kind of works along with Masters, but doesn't feel like she's kind of under the thumb of him like Ruth is with Chance, where that's very, very much a lopsided relationship there. Masters and Bianca feels like a little bit more of a equal partnership type of thing, even though some things at the end of the film kind of tend towards like maybe she was ready to kind of shift off and go off in different directions and leave him behind kind of at a moment's notice. But there is a very interesting aspect of sexuality to the entire film, with Bianca having very much bisexual overtones, having a relationship with Masters, but also Jane Lee Serena on the whole thing. And even when you first meet Bianca, this entire ambiguity about her walking up to Masters, but you're seeing her from behind and she's got the short hair and kind of looks almost like it's a male body. So you're kind of tapping on a little bit of the homosexuality aspects of the entire undercurrents in some places here. We got a lot of macho characters. We got Masters, who's an alpha. We got Chance, who's an alpha. Kind of get these guys really much impeding on their spaces overall. There's a lot of points in time where they kind of having freaking tapping a little bit of innuendo here and there. And just have little things here and there. Plus there's some quite a bit of naked male ass, with Willem Dafoe being extremely comfortable doing that on set. And it's done it quite a few times in his career, but I think everyone in the entire film performs their characters. Some of them are absolutely brilliant, some are just solid, but everything comes together very, very well in terms of the casting for this film. But Lord Almighty, you do have to talk about the soundtrack to Live and Die in LA, because Wing Chung was kind of an interesting choice overall, because they got a couple of hits, Dance Hall Days, and certainly after this, everyone Wing Chung Tonight, stuff like that. So got some things here and there. Before this, they have Points on the Curve, their kind of first album in that regard. It kind of went off in a certain way, but they were looking to kind of do something a little bit different after that album hit, and kind of looking at doing a soundtrack, some sort of film music in some way in that regard, because in the 80s, that was definitely exploding. Like, everyone could jump on a soundtrack, get some good money, good exposure, all that type of stuff, like a just easy way to go about it. And they really kind of hooked up with Friedkin because he liked their work in the first album they did, and just like they kind of started kind of really collaborating and kind of talking, kind of working together and stuff like that, finding that propulsive vibe the entire film absolutely just needed overall. And it's just right on the pulse of exactly what pop culture was in 1985. That sound, that vibe overall, all that type of stuff they put forward, because I'm obsessed with the main theme for the entire film, because originally Friedkin told them, I don't want a song called To Live and Die in LA. I don't want the title turned into some kind of cheesy lyrics or something else like that. But they kind of, after they kind of screened the film and did stuff here or there, they kind of got some music already prepped. They kind of got inspired to kind of just write the song. And like, I love the lyrics of the whole thing because they're kind of dark. It's kind of this pop-driven sort of rock song in a certain way. It's got great grooves, great guitar parts, all the type of stuff. Like, it feels like a hit song overall, but it's got some pretty dour lyrics to it overall. So it's a very inspired type of thing they put together, and freaking loved it. They actually shot an extra scene to use a song in for the opening thing, where they had the entire terrorist attack, bombing attempt on the hotel there with the president and everything like that. So he actually added that scene into the production to have the song kind of featured in any type of way whatsoever, because I guess they probably already managed to already have like the opening title sequence kind of prepped and designed and stuff like that overall, so they couldn't just change that with a different song and reconstruct the whole thing. So kind of found a different way to slip in there, and every so often the theme comes in without lyrics. The melody, everything like that kind of weaves in and out of the entire film. So I think what they put together for this film has really grown really fast on me. Because years ago I watched the film and didn't think much of the music of it, but once I kind of started listening to the soundtrack album, man, this thing punches. It's got such a great vibe to it. If you love 80s music, like, this really just hits the spot so much. It's right in the vibe, right in that sweet spot of the 80s where you can just get that synthesizer propulsion right through from beginning to end and get some great melodies overall. Lullaby is a really good song as well, so really just a fantastic piece of work. So I think that really kind of gave them a lot of extra momentum and velocity going through the 80s into much later work they did in the whole thing. So great things overall for the entire soundtrack. It does a really fantastic job too, and encapsulate exactly what this entire film is all about in terms of the vibes it has. But this film could not succeed terribly well without some very excellent action sequences to its credit, because I like the airport chase They mark Johnny Turturro's character because they know he's Master's mule, and he's dealing with counterfeit bills at the counter to buy his plane ticket. And the entire thing of the chase through the entire airport is like, it's just pure adrenaline. I love the physicality. I like how they shoot. I like all the qualities of it. Again, the propulsive music, the whole thing, and the entire little production information here of the fact that when you have Carl Cody running across this sort of conveyor belt type of thing, and Chance just leaps up on the median and runs across it, apparently all the people at the airport are saying, you cannot do that. We will not allow you to actually do that in this entire situation here. And Friedkin, Friedkin, he's going to get what he wants. And so he kind of quietly tells Petersen, like, oh, they're telling us we're not allowed to do this thing, but I'm going to tell everyone out loud, hey, you're not allowed to do this thing. You need to do this thing instead, Billy, but actually go off and just do it the way we planned it, stuff like that. So they Robbie Mueller there. We're going to have that camera dead set, ready to go. Follow the action right across the whole thing, and so they just boom ran the whole thing and oh wait, you can't do that. Where'd you do that stuff? Oh, that's just the way we rehearsed it and stuff like that. I wasn't thinking and whatnot. So, then we'll just go off and shoot it the other way just for the cover story, the whole thing. But again, Friedkin is a guy who's notorious about getting exactly what he wants. But on this film, not as notorious as he was on certain other productions where he caused certain physical harm to people, but much better way in this regard. So little thing, but it benefits the sequence so much. Just shows that's Chance's character. This is exactly what he do. He would just be stream of consciousness, this instinct. I'm going to get this guy no matter what. Nothing's going to get in my way. He would just leap on the whole thing, just try to get him as fast as possible. Just that, I get the physicality, the energy he has, the kind of kineticism about everything that's going on. The whole thing, it's just the intensity of that moment there. It's just a great little short action sequence, but there's that injection of adrenaline you need right at that point in time in the film, that just defines so much of Chance's character right there. I also like the little bookend to the entire story here, because you got the entire thing where Chance pulls Cody out of jail, and then he kind of escapes from custody and stuff like that, and then Chance has to go off and find the girlfriend and creep into her apartment there. It's a nice little suspense sequence where he's holding her, keeping her quiet and everything. I got this little divider in the middle of the frame there where Cody's coming down the hallway. It's a little kind of quiet suspense sequence, stuff like that, and then they kind of have a little bit of tussle and whatnot, but it's a nice little tense sequence there. I like that type of quality and what Friedkin does there. But of course, everyone wants me to talk about the car chase in the film, and of course, Friedkin's very well known for car chases in his films, of course, back to the French Connection, and later on Jade after this in the 90s, and kind of having it that Friedkin wanted to outdo the French Connection chase in this film, and have much more of a more plotted out sort of set piece in that regard, because notoriously kind of the French Connection, they did things a little bit guerrilla in that regard to a certain degree. I want to have much more of a plotted out kind of planned sequence that took them kind of weeks to put the whole thing together. It's a fine chase. But in terms when you talk about if it's one of the best chases of all time, I don't feel it is. I feel like there's some things, if you want to compare it back to French Connection, that thing, watching that sequence, my God, it's what makes a great car chase is a little bit of that random chaos. The things you crash into here and there, and the things that go off, a little bit off, just you gotta swerve around different things, you're almost going to crash into a person, or you ram yourself into a hydrant or some trash cans, you jump up on a sidewalk. All the things you just have to do with just the most razor sharp instincts type of things, and you're just that close to freaking absolute cataclysm. All those different things, even go up to, I like the chase in Jade. I like so much going off those streets of San Francisco, and just the leaps and bounds, all that type of stuff is very reminiscent of Bullet, back to Steve McQueen and stuff like that, going up on those hills, and they look absolutely devastating in that regard. I feel like the To Live and Die in LA chase doesn't quite have certain elements that make a great chase overall, because again, there's a certain plot element they have at the back end of that entire sequence where they do get shot once through the back window, and Chance says, oh, it's good we only broke the window, we can just replace this thing, we can have it back in the motor pool in a day. If we got any more wrecked in that regard, we wouldn't have gotten it back, and we wouldn't be able to cover our tracks in this regard. So it's a little plot element where they can't go ahead and plot the sequence where the entire thing gets smashed to pieces and ripped apart with bullets. I feel that's detrimental to creating quite the random chaos of the sequence here that could create much more that edge, that fierce lethality where you're just so close to becoming just a splatter on the pavement. I think it's a fine chase. I don't think it's legendary. Especially when they decide to go up the off-ramp and go against the flow of traffic on the highway to escape all the gun-toting henchmen. It's a particular thing that no one's following them up onto the highway. The only danger is them going against the flow of traffic. So examining all the time, so I was like, okay, if they were still being chased, it'd be one thing, but now it's just self-inflicted danger. So just one of these little things, like, and the fact that Friedkin did something that bothered me since I first watched this film. When they're going up on the highway against the flow of traffic, the traffic is actually going the wrong direction to begin with. They're driving on the left side of the road instead of what's proper in America, which is the right side of the road. And everyone kept coming up to Friedkin on the shoot day saying, why is everything backwards here? It doesn't make any sense. He said, I want to disorient the audience. Which is a choice. I don't think it was a good choice because I constantly hear people questioning why that happened. Why is it all backwards? So it seems like something they constantly sing with me doesn't disorient me, it distracts me. It pulls me out of the story of the film, trying to figure out what the production choice was to make this happen. So I don't think it was an effective choice. I think it's just kind of something that he came up with, had a feeling about, and didn't quite hit off as good as some of the other choices he had in the film. But it is a well-directed sequence with great coverage, all different things in terms of geography, covering the action. I love all the tight close-ups on William Petersen because he's just so intense, focused, because he's actually driving the damn car for the most part on these entire sequences, where it's like, you can feel that. I love the little moment where you have Chance, he's driving the car, you got the close-up on him, then you flash over to him and doing the base jump. Then you flash over to Vukovich in the back seat, and he's flashing on the guy that just got killed doing the heist and stuff like that. Like the dichotomy of the one guy's being fueled by the adrenaline that's pumping through him and all that type of stuff. This is where this guy lives, and the other guy's losing it, like living crazy. It's like the great dichotomy, showing those two characters in the heat of that moment. That's a great moment. So the entire thing has great moments. I just think it's one of the best things of all time. I thought that was a good thing to deconstruct and kind of examine on that regard. But still, the action in the film is very well done. Now, what we have here with the story of To Live and Die in LA, the narrative we have in the film, it's nothing radical. It's fairly standard cop thriller type of stuff. It's like, definitely a lot of stuff seems more cliche in retrospect when you're looking back on it, when you have like Jim Hart. He's the federal agent who's got 2 days to retirement, gets killed. You've got him saying, I'm too old for this shit. And you got all the stuff of like, oh, the cop, the federal agent, he's going to go off the rails and have to go off rogue and do this type of stuff. A lot of stuff is very well treaded. Even by the end of the 80s, it was well treaded. But what Friedkin brings to the entire film is that propulsive energy, that kineticism about how the film moves along. And that's the thing to credit for the film. They got this thing that moves and moves and moves and moves. But like I said, with the entire thing of him being very streamlined in the story, cutting out all the shoe leather type of stuff, you lose a little bit of the nuance. And even like the Carl Cody character, like, we got this entire subplot with that character of Chance, like, he needs this guy to kind of break Masters and crack the case and stuff like that. After Chance recaptures Cody and saying, you're going to lead me to where Masters prints his stuff, nothing's followed up on afterwards. Like, it doesn't even exist in the plot. He never leads him to where Masters' thing is. Vukovich found it ages ago in the film. He learned about it from freaking some other random art critic who was kind of appraising Master stuff back in the day, and he found that thing back then, but he never tells Chance about it to like, oh, well, here's the place. We just storm this place and get a warrant or something. If Chance was just out to get this guy, here's where you find him. And all the type of stuff. So there's interesting little things like they feel like there's something happens as a plot thread that never gets really followed up on to his conclusion to kind of make everything focus in by the end of the film. But more particularly, I find towards the end of the film, start running into some script problems here because the consistency of the characters seems to kind of disintegrate a little bit. Because like you have a guy like Rick Masters, like I said, works on very strict code. If he finds your liability, he doesn't find you genuine. If he thinks he's going to betray you any type of way, clean cut. He's going to cut his losses, move on, no second thoughts, no qualms, no nothing about that. They have Chance and Vukovich come in as these Palm Beach high rollers on an undercover operation, and he has Bianca check out the rental car and looking at all the stuff inside of it, kind of like look at the paperwork, all that type of stuff to kind of investigate who these guys really are, and he finds a little bit suspect. He seems he's not entirely convinced that these guys are exactly who they say they are. And it keeps happening with each successive meeting he has with these guys. Eventually, when after Chance and Vukovic do the entire heist, they get the kind of front money for the entire thing, and Chance meets up with Masters. Masters says, "Oh, this is Jessup," but he's not really Jessup. "Oh, are you wearing a wire?" So it seems like he has very much strong suspicions that the guys may not be genuine. Maybe he's just testing him in the entire sequence. They're kind of like, see if he's going to crack or slip up or something else like that. But if he has that much of a suspicion, it feels like with the character we established here, he just wouldn't work with these guys. He wouldn't risk it any type of way. Any type of point in time in the entire film where there's a risk he's going to be exposed, he cuts loose of it. Even when he has the entire thing of getting the money back for the hit that didn't get done, he burns all the counterfeit money, because once it's in the hands of these guys who didn't live up to their word, none of this money is any bit trustworthy. I have to burn it all because it's been in their hands. I don't know who else's hands they've been in. I don't know if they know anything about it. If there's any other things that can lead back to me, I have to burn this. So it's like this guy who's very strict about making sure that he's as clean as possible. And the more weird cog in the whole thing is Dean Stockwell's character of Bob Grimes, Rick Masters' house counsel, who's dealing with Vukovic because he's telling Vukovic, "I'm tired of dealing with Masters. I'm tired of having to deal with his criminal enterprises and everything like that." So he's kind of double dealing under the table to kind of set up the undercover operation. But after the entire climax goes down and Masters goes back to his place and he's burning everything up and Vukovic comes up on him and he's about to kill him and stuff like that, it says, "You should have taken the deal that Grimes offered you." Grimes consulted with Vukovic about what to do in face of the federal agent getting killed during the heist they did that stole the $50,000 for the $30,000 they needed for the front money with Masters. So Masters is aware of Grimes being involved with Vukovic and Vukovic being an undercover operations Secret Service guy. And this is where it just completely I don't know where the hell anything is. It's way too ambiguous. There's way too much vagueness floating in the ether for me to really kind of form all this stuff up. Like, where does Grimes land in this entire scheme of things? Because there's not enough information provided to know whose side he's on, what his goal was, what his game was, what his motivations were. He tells Vukovic one thing, but apparently he's dealing with Masters over here, but he's also telling Vukovic to turn himself in to get a deal to flip on Chance. But Masters knows about this, but he's still dealing with these guys to make the money that he doesn't really have that much of a compelling motivation to change up his operations and his strict code of working. It just completely started falling apart to me in that regard. It's like there's too many elements of nuance that are not present in the film to make these connections make sense to me. And then beyond that, it goes in a little bit of a different direction there, because Friedkin decided for the character of Richard Chance to change the ending of the film. And that was to kill Chance at the end of the film, because he kind of realized, kind of this epiphany comes across of, just kind of something that strikes him in the heart of the moment or whatnot. The fact that Chance has been this kind of risk taker, and he's kind of pushing the envelope, and he's pushing and pushing and pushing and whatnot. It feels like a proper ending for the character that he dies, that he goes a step too far, and he pays for it. And that makes a good commentary on the character, I feel. It's a very strong idea to follow along with if they didn't negate it a few minutes later, because Chance dies, Vukovic goes off, chases Rick Masters back to his plant, Masters is burning everything up, and then he kills Masters, and then Vukovic goes off and becomes Chance. He starts walking like Chance, dressing like Chance, acting like Chance, goes up to Ruth, "You're working for me now," all the time. So I was like, where does this come from? This is the character who's going through the entire film as this by-the-book type of guy with conscience weighing on him more and more as the entire thing unfolds with Chance, where he's pushing the envelope and going further off the rails and doing things further unethical and gets people killed and all that type of stuff. And he's wrought with guilt the entire time. And now he just kind of like sheds the guilt and says, "I'm just going to become Chance." I don't understand this landing whatsoever. Just like, it just feels like someone pulled it out of their ass. Like, I thought it was a cool idea to go off of that doesn't jibe with anything else in the film. This should be the complete opposite of what Vukovic should be doing at the end of the film. He should be going kind of towards what the book did at the end of the film, because the book is way different than the end of the movie. In the book, Jim Hart never dies. He's there to the very last page of the novel. Chance gets killed by Ruth, Masters lives and gets put on trial, and Vukovich kind of turns himself in a certain way to kind of like face the consequences of all his actions. That feels like what Vukovich should have done at the end of the film here. Face the consequences of all the things he's been accomplice to. It feels like that's the thread that follows along with, but this feels like a Hollywood action popcorn movie ending in that regard, kind of leave the audience kind of happy and upbeat and stuff like that, and kind of, ooh, wasn't that kind of cool, whatnot. Despite going with the consequential thing, because you had the entire thing with Jim Hart saying early on in the film, like, you're not going to make it to retirement doing all this hotshot type of stuff, and it pays it off. It pays that entire arc of Chance off, that he's a self-destructive personality that's going to push it too far, and he gets killed for it. But then you have Vukovich just go off and become Chance and just completely negate that commentary on the character there that you built out the entire film trying to do. So this entire thing of just the ending just drives me nuts because it just doesn't make any sense. I've been watching this film at least 15 years. Like, I first watched this film way back, way back, and just like, I've watched it every so often, every couple of years I go back to it, trying to see if there's something else that's going to click into my brain, that's going to make these things make sense, but the elements just aren't there. Those elements of character that would kind of flow through, they try to connect towards those final elements of those characters of Masters and Vukovich, and even Grimes in that regard, just never prop up in the film. They're just never present to link everything together to make it all make sense for me. I know a lot of people have put this film on a big pedestal saying it's classic, it's a masterpiece, and people feel that way. That's fine for them to feel that way. I've just never been able to crack the code of this film to feel like, where is it? There's just script problems that just fall apart by the end of it, just never add up to me. There's just so many different little things that just nag at me every time I try to go back to this film, it just frustrates me. Because I feel like there's so many really good things in the film. You got great elements in like the first two acts. Really good progression of different elements here, of great characters, some really great performances. I think, again, soundtrack being an 85 new wave type of thing just propulses the entire film through. I think Friedkin's focus on trying a little bit of a style, but also keeping the film kind of brisk and breezy in that regard, does add to a very good quality of the film, but just a lot of these different elements just kind of disintegrate and fall apart when you get into those points where it feels like it just becomes plot convenience, that people start acting out of character to kind of satisfy some other impulsive need for the entire film to kind of reach a certain ending or whatnot. It just feels like there's just too many things that aren't present in the film to make a lot of things make sense for me. So it is an interesting film. To Live and Die in LA has always been a film that Friedkin always very much was very proud of. And I would never take that away from him. Always passed now, stuff like that. But it's just one that just always had a very nagging sensibility about certain things that just never quite made sense to me. But I'd like to hear your thoughts about it. Post in the comments below and kind of let me know if you have a different opinion, what that opinion is, and what is it you liked so much about the film that really worked for you overall? And if you have some things about theories about how the elements of the script that I feel are problematic kind of fall apart, if you have any kind of feelings about how they kind of do kind of shore up and make sense to you or something else like that, I very much like to hear those discussions going on in the comments in that regard. But always got likes go up on the whole thing, subscribes for the channel, always hit the super thanks feature to contribute anything monetarily to the channel, supports around here, along with Patreon. But guys, always sharing the links around helps out very, very much to keep the channel healthy and feed the algorithms, stuff like that. But thanks so much for checking this video out and kind of engaging here and stuff like that, guys. So thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.